This episode of Outside Insights is brought to you by Placers, a values-led staffing partner helping businesses and individuals reach their highest potential. Build a flexible workforce or take the next step in your career at myplacers.com.
Okay.
So welcome back to the Outside Insights podcast. I'm your host, Chris Burkhardt. Today's guest has lived a story of resilience, gratitude, and reinvention. More than 20 years ago, Bob Larson was on life support. Coming through that moment really reshaped how he thought about everything: health, his work, relationships, and the simple fact of being alive each day. Bob is an entrepreneur. He owns a staffing firm, president of Berman Larson Kane. He's known us Burkhards forever, and I consider him a mentor from afar and a really strong early influence on me in the industry when I started my first business, a CBI group. Bob, it's an honor for you to be on my show.
It's my pleasure to be here. And it's always a pleasure to share whatever little nugget of information I can share.
So our connection, I had watched you in industry association meetings as a leader, as a young man. I started my own business, CBI Group. I don't think I've ever told that story really here. And, I was full of vim and vigor, and I was calling a lot of my dad's friends and going to talk to them about their business. And I came to see you in North Jersey, and I expected all these business nuggets, which I got plenty. But then lunchtime came, and we all did yoga. And I was starting a yoga practice at that time. But it was the most incredible influence for me because you made it okay for my personal interest to show up at work. And it was a big deal for me. So I just wanted you to know how significant that was for me. And it really made a big difference for me. Bob, where do we start in your story? You've been an entrepreneur a long time. You built a big business. You're operating differently today. Talk a bit about your journey.
Sure. I'm not quite sure where to start, but it goes considerably back. I always say to people, can you guess what one of my number one expenses were when I started the business in 1980? And
1980.
I've said it in front of many, many people, and no one ever guesses bicycle messengers. It was one of my 3 top expenses.
So because resumes and things were being shuttled all over town?
Shoveled over town by bicycle messengers. There were no faxes, no emails. You couldn't wait for the U.S. Postal Service to deliver a resume. It could take 3 or 4 days, even to go from midtown to downtown.
That's a heck of a story.
We always had sitting in our reception area at least 1 or 2 bicycle messengers waiting to get handed an envelope to go deliver it to one of our accounts.
It's a great story. So by the time I got into the space, we hadn't had fax machines, but we had a courier who happened to be running payroll all over offices, but would still run resumes. So I kind of remember it.
So, but that is sort of like I always think of the changes I have seen in my lifetime are just phenomenal. For instance, of course, fax machines are no longer a usable apparatus in business, or very seldom. But my first portable fax machine I bought, I paid $4,500 for,
which is just crazy.
And think about it, and I only had 2 accounts that actually could receive faxes at the time. But when I ran the numbers, I could save that much on bicycle messengers and get the paper there for me.
Was that the really thin paper, Bob?
It was a thermal paper.
Gosh, it ended
that
up
was on a roll. It was just. But anyway, I mean, to go back, that's a worthless nugget, but it just gives you in one lifetime the changes I've experienced. It's incredible. And so, where to begin the journey of what's usable information, I'll let you question me, and I'll go into that decade or whatever.
Well, you led a really big staffing firm, and you've chosen to have a boutique practice today. What are the big differences, not just in business, but how you live and work? I think that's really the root of what I find so compelling about you.
I can tell you that when the business was around 100 employees, 50 internal and another 50 out at clients or so. And it was fun. There was a lot of fun doing it. We were a best employer in New Jersey for a number of years, always ranked in the top 5 staffing firms in the state for decades. So it was a very good business. But here's the difference. And I think this is something that comes in. You can either work in your business or on your business. And when I had a lot of employees, I was working on my business and did very little work in the business. Okay. And as time went on and, the 2008 recession hit and things sort of started scaling back big time. Around 2015, about 10 years ago, I started working in the business full time. And I had such a good time. It was delightful for me to be in the business, back doing the interviewing and the placement of people, as opposed to just going out and being the rainmaker and pitching clients of what services we could offer. So if this is a nugget of information for myself, if I was to go real the times back and go back 25 years, I would have hired someone to operate my business, a COO, and continue to work in the business. And I think, although I was not bad at running the business, my real core strength was being in the business.
So you were
And my most enjoyment was being in the business, I might add, too, it
the
turns out.
craft of being a great recruiter, the craft of being
Mhm.
that's it's really interesting because us Burkhards, I don't know if we were ever good recruiters. We always focus on running the business versus, that Michael Gerber E-Myth thing of, sure where I even learned that, right? But I was learned to work on the business. So I think a lot of people struggle with like bigger must be better. What made you comfortable with making this change? I get a sense that the work's simply much more fulfilling.
The work is much more fulfilling. There are times when the profit margin is even larger.
Well, you're trying to get it done through others. I know what you're saying there, just to keep the lights on.
But even removing the money aside, it's just so much fun to be engaged and hear about people's career aspirations, to hear about what they really want to do, to be able to put that together and match it with a potential employer and have the employer say, Bob, you're the greatest on earth. You got us this person who we love. And the person is happy because they're doing a task and a job that they love. It's just making that match is where total joy comes in from the business. Okay. And I think I lost sight of that for probably several decades as I worked on growing the business.
So you can't help but think about your story of bicycle messengers and fax machines without thinking that you've seen careers evolve over decades. What do you think people get wrong about sort of managing their career today? And what advice would you have for folks?
I'll give you a personal example. Okay.
Perfect.
I have 3 children. Okay. One is an outdoor educator. One is a lighting designer, and one is a guidance counselor for the rich and famous.
Okay.
My daughter comes home and says, I want to be an outdoor educator. I never even heard of what an outdoor educator was at the
Is that
time.
like a park ranger?
No,
Okay.
it's more like who teaches wilderness skills.
Knowles instructor.
Okay.
I know all about
Actually,
that.
actually, she was a Knowles instructor for many years.
Yes.
And at the moment, she's director of wilderness medicine education, which is a subsidiary of Knowles.
Well, that's I've been a backpacker for 30 some years, Bob. So I wanted to be a Knowles instructor, but ended up as a recruiter, believe it or not.
Well, anyway, to make a point thing, the one thing I preached at home to my 3 children was find something you love to do and you'll never have to work a day in your life. Okay. And so, one daughter comes home and says, Dad, I want to be an outdoor educator. And we work on sending her to the right college to become an outdoor educator, which is basically a Knowles instructor. Okay. My son he was very good with computers, but he liked the theater and liked the technical part of the theater. So he went to college to become a lighting designer.
Hmm.
Okay. Again, peers would say to me, you're going to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars so your child can learn how to point a spotlight. I go, well, it's a little more involved than that.
Yes.
But yeah, but basically, this is his passion and this is what he wants to do. And he went on to become a lighting designer for the New York City Ballet and for the Metropolitan Opera.
It's a
The
little more than
height,
spotlights.
the height of lighting. Okay. And my third daughter, I have always hoped she would come into the business, but in some way she is in the business as a guidance counselor for students. Okay.
Gotcha.
And she does that for the rich and famous in a school in California. Okay. So all of them follow their passion, follow what they were doing, and have happy, good careers. They don't work a day in their life, and they have risen to the top of their profession. Okay. So what I really find, to go back to your original question, is where people miss things are they sometimes do it just for the monetary gain. People become accountants and they don't like numbers.
You're right on there.
There are people who are very good accountants and love numbers, and they're very happy doing it. And they're usually the ones who are most successful at it. But I
Oh,
have seen, the Wall Street gang, people going into finance, not because they love the finance world, but because they think it's the biggest return. And I've seen that in every profession. So really, it's sort of like the mistake that I see people make is they move out of their DNA, and their DNA is embedded in to do something that comes natural to them. And instead they go off where a job is.
off where a job is, or off where they perceive the money or
Oh,
ROI.
yep.
Yeah, that quite. I think you're right, and I sense this is an appropriate place to launch off. Once you pay your bills, that extra money has nothing to do with happiness.
Correct. And I really think that if a person does what they love, the money follows
I agree with you.
because they rise to the top of what they're doing. So I think that
Pick
answers your
something and
question.
be great at it.
Exactly.
With that, and have your DNA
Mhm.
support it. And I think that's the perfect way to answer that question. So you're 75. You look pretty damn good, if you ask me.
Oh, thank you.
You're still practicing. You're still writing. You're active on Substack. You're engaged in your work today. But bring us back. 22 years ago, you had a pretty big health scare.
Well, look at here's the deal on that too. A few months before, I think it was only 6 weeks before I had this episode, my internist told me I was the healthiest patient in his practice. Okay. I was running races, marathons. I never hiked if you said you would like to hike, I never hiked the entire Appalachian Trail, but I hiked in every state doing section hiking on the AT. So
Really?
I had a good diet. I was fit. I was, I guess you might say the picture of health.
Yeah, I remember being at conferences watching you step out the door in San Francisco and go for a run many years ago, come to think of it. So
That's funny too, because I had a very large energy level, and someone once said to me, "Who's the real Bob Larson? The guy who runs the sunrise yoga class and the sunrise jogs, or the guy who closes the bar at night?"
who do you
And
think is the
somehow
real
I
one?
had the energy to do both. I was a very fortunate guy. But to come back on the catastrophic episode, I'm sitting at my daughter's high school graduation, and I say to my wife, "Well, I got a really weird cramp in my back." And like any father would do, you grin and bear it, and you sit there and enjoy the graduation ceremony. Okay. 3 days later, I woke up on life support. I had an artery dissection, mesenteric artery dissection. It's a minute artery that brings blood to the cone, but mine just popped for some unknown reason.
And that's what caused the pain? You felt that?
That's what was causing the pain. And thank God I had good body awareness because I had never been to a hospital in my life except for a broken arm when I was a kid. And after the ceremony, I said to my wife, "I think we should go to the hospital. Something's wrong here." And well, anyway, when I woke up and I became conscious, I had 95 staples zigzagged across my chest. I mean, basically, they had to split me open, take some veins out of my leg and turn them into arteries and put me back together. So clinically, I was dead for a period. So that was, I can't say it was an aha moment, but it made me appreciate every moment that came after that. Okay.
It had
And
to
never
change the
took
way you
any,
saw
never
life.
took
Yeah.
anything for granted from there.
I can imagine. It seems like it's manifested itself in the way you live every day, but the way you approach certain practices with things. Is that why you started to write as well? Is to share, or is that not connected?
Well, I've had a meditation practice for over 30 years. Okay. And I've done thousands of hot yoga Bikram classes. Okay. Actually, the studio even did a video on my thousandth class,
Are you kidding?
an international studio. So I had this
It's 26
connection.
moves, right? 26?
Yes, that's the and it was actually to come back. It's 26 poses. You do them each one twice,
Yes.
and you would think how boring would it be to spend 90 minutes in a room that's 104.5 degrees with 45% to 50% uh, humidity, humidity, and do it over and over in repetition. And what I learned doing that, which is incredible, doing those same 26 poses thousands of times, each time I did it, I learned something new about myself.
Well, that's the impressive part.
And that was like a lesson that came forward to me in my actually the Bikram yoga practice is called a moving meditation. So my meditation, my silent meditation and my yoga meditation, and even jogging became a meditation in itself, helped me get through that first catastrophic illness because I had those practices before.
So you were able to meditate on the pain.
I can tell you this. Here I am on a respirator, pumping air into my chest. Okay. And I'm turning it into Ujjayi breathing.
Really?
Okay.
Yes.
And those are one of my first conscious moments of coming out, of knowing that I was alive, with no idea why I had 95 staples zigzagged across my chest. But the respirator pumping the air into my chest was almost like part of my yoga practice.
Well, that just speaks that you woke up as, more committed to being a yogi than before, right? Like it's on your mind and a part of you. So
I have a sister-in-law who says, Bob, you trained your entire life for these illnesses
well,
to be able to deal with them.
that's a great way to say that. So it's interesting. The event shaped you, but the illnesses have shaped you. And do you have a clear picture of how it changed the way you saw your life?
I think it made me more aware of how precious life is and that life is a gift. Everybody says life's a gift. The statistical probability of you and me being here today is astronomically impossible if you look at the numbers of how it comes together.
One of us is going to write about that now. Know that. But you or me is going to write about that.
But to come back on that statistical improbability of things, I never lost sight of not only the miracle of life, the gift of life, but to realize life comes with no warranties or guarantees.
Mm.
What you picture, I went from perfect health to life support in the blink of an eye.
In 15 minutes. Was it hard to give stuff up or easy to let go of things post that? That whole idea of if we just say no, we'd be happier,
To answer your question, I've had to accommodate all sorts of physical challenges. Okay. I mean, at the moment, I walk with 2 walking sticks because I don't have the balance. At one point for one of my surgeries, I woke up with a hole in my leg that you could put 2 rolls of quarters into, okay, right down to the bone as they were rewiring the leg. But yes, I wish I could hike again. I wish I could jog again, but I've had to reinvent things to do. Like from going to Bikram yoga, I go to chair yoga now.
which
Okay.
is pretty challenging. I get it,
I've gone from, oh God, I did the New York City Marathon. The final mile of the marathon did in 6 minutes and 40 seconds.
Unbelievable.
Okay. Okay. Today, with my 2 walking sticks, I struggle to get 5,000 steps in every day. I get the 5,000 steps in, but my mile time is now somewhere between 32 and 35 minutes.
Well, and now it's the 75-year-old record, right?
But to come back, the adjustment to get there is the acceptance of that's the new challenge. And so it's no different than trying to do a sub 3 hour marathon. Now it's a challenge to do a sub 30-minute.
So, Bob, that's your incredible area of expertise that we all don't know it, but we're all going to go through some level of adjustment, compromise, rethinking. And I'm sure it's not been easy. I'm sure it's been hard. How did, if you had any advice for others that are going to go through this, how did you attack it? I know it wasn't perfect, but how'd you go through this and, be able to get to where you are with this?
There was some little voice within me that kept pushing. Look, you've done a lot of hiking. You wanted to be a Knowles instructor. Sometimes during the day, if the weather or the terrain, you start developing physical pain as you're hiking.
Yes.
And somehow mentally, you go from one step to the next and the pain sort of disappears at a point. You kind of push through it. And that's no different than what I do.
It's the same thing. It's
Same principle. Yep.
okay. It's mental fortitude, but it's acceptance to a degree.
Mm-hmm.
It's very interesting. So you're still very curious and very engaged. You have an active daily blog on Substack. What's the inspiration with it?
The inspiration for the Substack blog was, again, another change. Instead of being able to go to a meditation center, I meditate via Zoom with a group called the Online Meditation Events Center. Practice, they introduced a journaling class. Okay, so I wrote a journal for every day for a year. And then one of the instructors said, you should put that out for people. She goes, you have some good stuff there. And believe me, I am no writer. English is my second language or my third language, even though it's the only language I speak. I have no grammar ability.
But
I
you have
no
great
vocabulary
ideas and content.
Well, thank you for saying that. And that's sort of what the instructor said. And once I put it out there, I was like shocked at how many people read it and how many people compliment me on it randomly, who I hardly even know.
Well, we like stories that are out or that are put out there that are raw and transparent. I'm convinced of that. And, although I'm a business guy with other things, what I've learned, Bob, is that my intersection with all the people I've ever helped with careers or helped in business with, workforce stuff is jobs have nothing to do with any level of happiness, frankly. And most people are trying to have an earned life. And it ends up that they end up thinking about journaling or meditation or a gratitude practice or a way to get to know themselves and figure out their own core values, right? Like that journey is a part of figuring out who you are. And then ultimately, then maybe you figure out your DNA and what you're good at. And you go be your version of a Knowles instructor, right? Go do what you're good at. But so I think you're hitting on something that you've done hundreds about gratitude. Most people are unable to write down 3 things of why they're grateful today. So there's an impression you leave, and I think people are desiring to figure out how to be grateful.
Look, I can't say I'm grateful every moment of every day.
Oh, no, that's evident, right?
Okay.
That's evident, self-evident.
But the real thing that I find, the gift that I have, and this came from a lot of practice, is that I know I am aware when I'm not being grateful. I'm aware when I'm feeling selfish. I'm aware when I'm pissed off at someone. And that awareness of falling out of a state of gratitude, I can reel it back. And when I can reel it back, it brings you a great sense of peace.
Well, I think I've heard it said that the gratitude or the meditation is the workout that ultimately helps you kind of rebound quicker, right? To have that awareness to come back to it. So a lifetime of it gives you the ability to come back to center a little faster than the rest of us due to that practice, which I think is, it's another thing. Did you originally, I always talk about, why do I journal? Why do I meditate? Why do I do yoga? It's because I have this damn monkey brain that I can never shut off, right?
Look, I have an ego, self-talking ego that screams at me a lot of times.
Oh, okay. So I'm good to know I'm not the only one. And you know what? Right now it's telling me it's louder than yours, which tells you how wrong it is, right? But so, I get asked this a lot. Do you have to do all these things with repetition in order to calm that ego? I'm not sure I know the answer.
I don't think I'm qualified to give that answer.
Yeah, but you have a perspective.
I do know that, it's very hard and very difficult to think that sitting on a meditation cushion in silence is productive. There always seems to be something else you could be doing that's more important. However, I have found my silent retreat each morning is probably the most productive part of my day. And that is counterintuitive to everything one thinks about.
And that's what people say. I have all these thoughts. I have to-do lists to do. I can't sit there. I don't have that kind of time. I do think you're right in so many ways there.
And if you sit there in silence sometimes, that to-do list or that continuous desire to do evaporates. And the importance of the things on that list sort of just go up in the air and they're less important. And you can get down to the things that are more important to do.
And is that through the stillness?
It comes out of the stillness.
Which is so hard for all of us to wrestle with and an audience to process if you can't find a moment of stillness.
Look, here is something that is different that has gone through my lifetime. We are in a state of continuous partial attention in the environment in our life. So everybody has their phone, everybody's texting, people walk with their phones, text at all different times. You could be in a church, you could be anywhere, and people's minds are elsewhere because we have these. And I'm not against the technology, it's wonderful. It's brought freedom in a lot of ways. That desire to be in continuous communication and texting and stuff takes one out of the present moment. And that present moment is where the peace comes from.
It's not from
And the
thinking
clarity.
about the past or the future, which
Yep.
is where the pain comes from.
Yes, the pain all comes from the past or the future. As I always like to say, it's your false mind just sitting there. It's your ego wanting to control and creating problems that probably will never come to pass.
What's that? There's a famous quote that the imagined worry is always worse than the actual.
Absolutely.
I'm
And
paraphrasing.
I'm having a senior moment. I'm forgetting who actually said that.
Well, we'll make sure it shows up in the meeting notes. It'll come to us.
It could have been the quote. The way I remember the quote is, "I've worried so much about so many things, none of which ever happened."
Yeah. The imagined worries. Oh, the pile, right? Well, I've seen a few of the visuals and things, where it's all the things we think will happen. And then what actually happens is just such a small, minuscule
Yeah.
aspect of it. But we burn up so much life force, so much energy on that. You're pretty committed to your practice, chair yoga, meditation, journaling. It might be a tough question for you having you're now, they're a part of you, but a lot of folks that are listening are thinking, how the heck do I get started? And, I mean, it's always great when we can convert somebody a little bit, right? Or get them some help. But what would you recommend? Because you started once. It's a tough
I'll share
question.
this. I'll share the story how I started,
Yes.
because I'm not sure I can tell other people how to start.
Yeah.
But my wife enrolled us in a yoga class. It was like 6 sessions once a week, a couples yoga class. It has to be 35, 40 years ago. After I did my first yoga session and then sat in meditation at the end, I was hooked. Okay. And my wife dropped out and and now I still continue it. We laugh about that. But to come back on how people should start, I mean, there are so many resources available. I mean, there are meditation sessions. You can just Google meditation sessions, and there's legitimate ones out there. You can do it yourself by just sitting in silence. And it's hard to sit in silence when you think you should be doing something.
It feels a little vanilla, but I even use the Calm app when I can't get there on my own, Bob.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'll take a guided one for 10 or 15 minutes, and it's not a bad way to get it going if you can't get there yourself,
Oh, there's lots of things to help and stuff. It's there. And, you can meditate in silence, washing your dishes, just being fully present on washing the dish or scrubbing a pot and not looking at your phone while you're doing it or looking at a TV in the background. Just taking pride in scrubbing the pot it can be a peaceful moment of silence.
I think you're bringing forward just that notion that the awareness that you don't have to be thinking about one thing, doing something else. You don't have to be walking the dog on the phone or listening to a book, right? Or watching TV, read. These are my own demons, by the way,
And
reading.
I have those demons too. So, I mean, it's
Yeah.
not like I'm exempt from them.
Yeah, it's no, that idea of being where you are in the most simple things. Do you ever try the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1? Like I'm out walking the dogs and I'm realizing that my brain is in Topeka, Kansas on a problem, right? I'm off in Neverland. And it's so you look at 5 things and focus on them, or feel 4 things that, the temperature on your skin, or or smell 3 things, or touch 2 things. Sometimes just bringing it back to what's right in front of me is the way I snap back. But Bob, I guess what I want to share is I'm so conscious of what we're talking about, yet I fall out of this so easily, even though I'm conscious of it. It's a
Look,
constant process of coming back to the present moment, no matter what.
you don't beat up on yourself for falling out of it. It's the awareness that you're falling out. It's the awareness that your mind is into the past, or your mind is into fantasizing a future event. Because we all do it, but it's the awareness to reel yourself back into the present moment.
Which is
Um,
what the practice is all about.
about that. And if, when it comes to picturing future problems or future dilemmas or future hurdles in front of you, which we all drift into that, or fear. And I always say fear is an acronym for fantasize experiences appearing real. And that to me says it all, because you're fantasizing the experience and you're making it real in your head. But the only place it's real is in your mind.
But to your mind, it's the same thing.
It is, but you have to be aware that it's your mind. I mean,
Well,
if you look at, there's a very simple illustration. If you're in a closed door and you believe there is a snake ready to bite you on the other side of that door, your body has the same adrenaline, the same fear as if there really was a snake on the other side of that door. Okay. So the awareness that your mind has created that snake on the other side of the door allows you to just say, whoa, I just made that up. I'm just going to open the door. I'm going to be fine.
so it's not like my audience doesn't know this, but we always have kind of a pre-show thing. When we talked, you talked about a book that was it Singer that we talked about, Michael Singer, that was a meaningful book for you, or am I overstepping there? And if it's not Singer,
I think one of the books in business that helped me a lot was Michael Gerber.
Okay, the E-Myth, a great one.
The E-Myth. Yeah. I mean, I think he helped a lot. I mean, look, there's a lot of books that have changed my life and things to read about. I mean, I still am part of 3 book clubs a month. But 3 book clubs so that's 3 books I'm reading a month just
Yeah.
for those clubs to participate in. And I find it, one is mostly fiction.
Mhm.
Another one is inspirational and stuff. I find reading to be just a joy. And, look at this is something
Well, it's a present
this is
moment.
something about, yep. But this is something that the decades scare me. Because I read the other day, or maybe a few weeks ago, that the average book is now 80 pages shorter than it was they were a decade ago.
That's that goldfish thing, goldfish attention span. Yeah.
And it's like, my God. And I probably wasn't even aware of that until I read it.
Yeah. And I'm old enough where I pick up a book and say, this is awful thin, little bit of a shift, but it should be an easy one for you. And if you think of any books that you'd recommend, or anyone you want to recommend to me, we can certainly make sure that they're indicated in the notes, where, certainly something, because I think that's a big part of, I always talk about the books I'm reading, and always put out the notes of guests that they're reading. It
I
seems
mean,
like you, go ahead.
I was going to say, one of the books that I think has had an impact on me recently, and she's become like a superstar, is Mel Robbins' Let Them.
Yes. And feel free to bring the point home with that book, because I think it's not only stoic like, but I also think it's mainstream, which is the key to that.
Yeah.
It's consumable by anyone.
And it's something we all do. We think we know what other people's heads and what they're thinking about us. And you just got to let them do what they want to do. And that is something, to come back to it, Chris, that is something that staying in the present moment allows one to not knee jerk react to something that you hear. So almost let someone say anything to you and you don't react to it. You hear it, digest it, and maybe comment on it, but that would be probably the furthest you would go.
Bob, I coached high school soccer for a long time, and one of our values was nothing negative said, nothing negative heard. And there was a way
You were the Ted Lasso before Ted Lasso.
I was before. I'm not quite as talented as him, but yes, I took that approach. It's funny you mentioned that. Yeah. If there's such a thing as a high school coach who tried that approach, it was probably a bit of me. But yeah, Mel Robbins is terrific because I think she's basically opening scene is that her son is going to prom and she wants to tell him what to wear and where to go have dinner and what to eat when all he wants to do is wear whatever the heck he's wearing and go get tacos or something right. And she's just like losing her mind because she wants to control. And the point is let them and let yourself. And, maybe we'll get Mel on the show here, Bob. Maybe we could do that. We'll see.
Oh, she has, every once in a while I see a video clip of her, but her book just, I don't have the tattoo, but it hit home, that book.
I got it. So kind of a careers question, but it fits in with our dialogue. What would you tell someone who's trying to balance this career ambition thing with taking care of themselves?
I think one will take care of the other if one can figure out what's in their DNA and what they love to do. And if a person knows what they love to do, you'll find a career, money will come and follow it. It's really knowing what it is you enjoy. And I don't mean being a drug addict and going out and enjoying an addiction of some sort, but you can, look, you coach soccer. There are some players who are good goalies, some players who are good forwards.
Yes.
It's just a different talent. And as a coach, you recognize that talent and assemble your team accordingly. Well, I think we all have to do that with how we want to live our life going forward. And it's just something that I think we need to teach the children and people growing up, that you don't have to be an accountant. You don't have to be a doctor. You don't have to be a lawyer. You could be a soccer coach and be the next Ted Lasso if it's in your DNA.
And the key is, how do people figure that out?
Well, one of the things I always used was, I don't even know if it's still around, because the CUDA preference test. Are you familiar with that?
Believe it or not, I'm not. Believe it or not, yeah.
And it was a test that one took, and it had like bizarre questions. Would you rather go fishing or hunting? Would you rather? And somehow it would come with that and say, this is probably a good career for you.
Is that
okay? I took that test when I was in college, and it told me to be a recruiter.
Is that
a recruitment manager? I'm sorry?
How do you spell it?
I'm not 100% sure.
Well, we'll look it up.
But I don't even know if the test is still around.
Well, we can.
But that test nailed me right from the beginning. And I used variations of that test for many years. For instance, in hiring people for my company, I had hired an industrial psychologist. I think that was his title. Okay. And he came in and interviewed my most successful employees and built a test for Berman, Larson, Kane. So we could continue to hire people who had that in their natural DNA. And that test, I couldn't just hire on the test. There were other factors in there. But boy, that was a guiding light on who to hire.
That's really interesting. So I certainly remember, you and I have both coached thousands of people. Campbell's was the test that I always saw that people showed up with coming out of career coaching or outplacement stuff, and it always had a pretty good success rate. So if people are aware of that one, I think that's still in play quite a bit. I think that's good stuff. So we're teaching lessons. Any other sort of things you'd like to share, lessons you'd like to share with the audience?
Nope. Just enjoy each day, enjoy each breath, and be aware of where you are in this moment. And that awareness will carry you forward and you'll be happy in every moment if you're aware of what's around you.
So I'm going to ask a dumb question so that you can teach. When you look back, what are you most grateful for?
I've had a wonderful life, continue to have a wonderful life. I mean, there are many, many grateful moments along the way. I mean,
Bob, I expected you to say,
there was a gratefulness for that catastrophic illness
yes.
23 years ago.
Well, that's what I expected you to say. It's grateful for that event.
That event was a teaching moment, and each surgery that I have, and there are more on the horizon, is a teaching moment.
So, fun question. What advice would you give your 21-year-old self?
This is going to sound totally out of too egotistical. Do it the same.
Do it the same. Well, no, I often say when people say, "Do you want a second chance?" I'm like, no, that's too complicated. So if that's what you mean, I get it.
Look, I mean, there's a saying, a proverb: "We grow wise too late and old too soon."
Well, there's some truth
And
to that.
there's a lot of truth to that. So could I bring my 70-something brain into a 21-year-old body? That might be an incredible experience.
Yeah, I think it'd be hard to find a girlfriend, but that'd be a right, like, you know what I mean? Like that'd be complicated, but that's okay. I'll help with this too. But what do you help people carry away with them after hearing your story? What do you want them to carry from this?
I don't know what I want them to carry. I have been very humbled and it's brought me a lot of joy to hear people comment on my public story. And that, to me, they all take something different out of it.
Yes.
But there is some common thread in it that, I'm out walking the street here, and, a neighbor says to me, "Oh, I see you're considering moving," which was something I put in the other day. I go,
yes.
"Whoa,
yeah.
I didn't know you read my crap every day."
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive.
And it was a bit of what would it take to move, right? Like,
Yes.
Oh my gosh, I've been here a while. So it wasn't like I'm moving on Tuesday, but no, I do think it's interesting to get a peek through your blinds every day, Bob, the sense of what's going on. So it's kind of fun. And, obviously Bob Larson on Substack, so people can find you there. We'll make sure the link is there.
Chris, just one thing just came back to me. Another grateful moment in my life is I was in my 20s, Labor Day weekend. I went out to play tennis. I come back from the tennis court, and there's all sorts of commotion around my house. Fire engines, police cars everywhere. I go, "What's going on?" They go, "Oh, one of the little townhouses is on fire." It was my house. I was reduced to my only possessions was my tennis racket and my sneakers. Everything I had was wiped out.
Were you able to learn that
amazing, wonderful learning experience, because materialistic items had almost no value through the past 50 years.
From that experience,
everything can be replaceable. That was a real ha-ha moment for me.
Now, you weren't such a stoic that you thanked the firemen for that lesson, were you? I think it took a bit to get there, perhaps, right?
The lesson came in. I was lucky enough. I had some insurance, some fire insurance. So I had some money that helped replace some of the things. But no, I never thanked the firemen. They were nice and everything. And the fire inspector was nice. But it was all of a sudden to be reduced to not one material possession, and then to work your way back from it. So that was probably my first real yoga lesson before I took yoga.
Well, a lot of us read about Stoic lessons. You've had a few actually happen to you and then learn the lessons along the way. Bob, it's been a pleasure to have you.
It's been a pleasure, yes.
On Outside Insights. I can't thank you enough. And, as your writing piles up, we'll have you back again.
Well, I thank you. I appreciate that.